Hey Shooby Doodlers, how are you doing? Today in this video I'm going to be reviewing these pens. They are Uni Pen fine line pens and they're water and fade proof resistant. They come in all sizes. Well, they're all kind of the same shape, but the nibs all come in different sizes. I'm going to tell you why. I have been sent these pens by Seawhite of Brighton, and if you follow me a lot then you'll know that I love using their paper and their sketchbooks, and I'm not being sponsored by them. They're not paying me to say all this. These are all my own opinions, but I really do love their stuff. It's high quality and very good value. But let's not talk about that. Let's go and find out about these pens. So these are the Unipin fine line pens, and let's just take a look at one. So this is the 0.8, so this is quite a chunky one. And it says Unipin fine line water and fade proof pigment ink. Now for me, the waterproof bit is really, really important because I do lots of line and wash, which means I draw in ink and then colour in watercolour. And quite often you get pens that say waterproof and they really aren't. And when you start to put in the watercolour, all the black ink smudges. And sometimes maybe they are waterproof, but you've got to wait 24 hours or something like that. And when you're sketching, you want to be able to just draw and paint. And the good news is they really are waterproof. And the secret is in this term pigment ink. When you see something that says pigment ink, then you know that's pretty well going to be waterproof. So let's start with the black pens, and we are starting off at 0.05, and this is a really, really fine pen. Zooming in, so I'm reaching for my Seawhite of Brighton heavyweight cartridge. So why would you need so many pens? Let's have a little look first. And so this is the 0.5, and that is a really fine line. And what they should say, look, this is how you kind of normally write with a biro or something like that, and you're getting a scratchy kind of line, but if you hold it more vertically you're going to get a much more even line, and I think that is the secret with these pens. They have very sturdy nibs and they're very precise. That's the 0.05, and then this one is a 1, and again, so I'm holding it much more vertically, but if I hold it at the side, you know, you can see it just scratches out a little bit, and the faster you draw, the more scratchy it gets, I suppose, is the thing. And then we go up, so this should be twice the thickness. So this is a 2, so we've gone from 0.5 to a 1, so that should be twice the thickness. This again should be twice as thick, and you can see it's certainly twice as dark as the 1. And then we go to a 3, so this will be that little bit wider. And then we go to a 5, which is that little bit wider again. And then we're going to go to the 8, which is wider again. So why do you need all these different thicknesses? Certainly people who do technical drawings and architectural drawings, they like to maybe draw the front of the house in something much more definite like that, with windows and a door, and then maybe they'll have something not quite so obvious and so heavy for the horizon line. And then where's the 1? Then we might want to have trees as in a much sort of thinner line, which the thinner line then sends it more into the background and makes it less important. And let's get that really, really thin one. And then you might want to do some shading, and you don't want it to be too obvious. So you can do the shading in a much sort of thinner line like that. And you might want to sort of shade in those windows. And if you shaded that in with the same thickness of pen that you use to draw it, then it's going to get very messy. But if you have a thinner line, then it's kind of not so, they don't conflict with each other, the lines, because you've got a thin line and the thick line is still showing through as being the cross piece in the window. Does that make sense? And similarly you could be doing sort of shading in the background for the trees like that, with a much thinner line, which it isn't causing the eye to be drawn to it as much as the black lines of the house, which is the main feature. And again, you know, you might want to shade that side, and you can, the thinner the line, the less obtrusive it is into the drawing. So that's why you want to have sort of thick and thin line pens. What do I think of them? As I said, they have the most important thing for me. They are waterproof, and I'm believing that they're fade proof. You want to come back and find your artwork which has been stuck on the wall in the sunshine for 50 years and see if it is still black, and I think it probably will be and won't have faded, but other inks really will fade, so that's a good thing. And pigment is usually the word that you need to look for, kind of fade proof. Now they also have in their range greys and browns. So again, here you might want to put a shadow in here, and you could then do that in grey. That is going to be great. I found that these aren't quite so waterproof, so we won't talk about that. This looks great, but if you want to print it in black and white, this isn't going to show up. So the reason that we have all these thin lines and everything and do it all in black and white is so that you can print it in black and white. If you start putting greys in there, you're going to have to print in halftone, which is a whole different thing again. So these greys are really more for artwork that are going to be visual and aren't going to be printed in black and white. So you would have to kind of print in colour if you were going to use these greys. And again, I think you can, do all sorts of things. I'm just doing this very boxy house, and again, you can then put this shadow falling that way, and then we have a brown, a sepia brown as well. Sometimes when you're doing watercolour, black is just too much, and it's just not subtle enough, and you want to sort of paint a rose or something that doesn't look like a rose at all, and you want a more subtle line that's going to kind of fade and not look so stark and black and white. And watercolour is a very delicate medium. In fact, let's do a little test. So we sort of got something like that, and a scribble and a rose is going to be something like that. And let's put them to the test in one of two ways. Let's see if they actually are waterproof. That looks pretty waterproof to me so far. And that's pretty waterproof. And then we're going to want some green for the stem and some green for the stem. And you can see that this one here is just a little bit more kind of subtle, whereas this is black ink with colour. So that's one of the reasons we use these things. And then you could also then sort of have it lying on the ground and have a bit of shadow in there like that. And you could use a grey in there too, but you could also use, a finer line like that. With a shadow, and I'm going to really risk it having drawn that so quickly, not giving it very long to dry. I'll try a little bit of sort of shadow in there like that. Now my test is to get water on a water brush and just to have clean water over the top and see if it gets dirty. It's getting a little bit dirty. It is, but then I'm really rubbing it in. And if I was working in the studio, then always before I came to do watercolour, I would get my hairdryer on it and make sure it is absolutely dry. This here is again, it is actually slightly not waterproof. It's picking up the colour in the water. But again, I think if you were to really dry it properly with a hairdryer, that would not happen. Now, the one thing that I really do like in this set is this one. It's the odd one out, and it's the brush. And this is a very fine brush, so it kind of looks like an old Pentel felt tip, but it's definitely not. So you can get a very fine line, and you can get a very thick line. So you can be doing, sort of curly-whirly calligraphy. I'm writing my mum's name. Why am I doing that? How sweet is that? You can do curly-whirly calligraphy, but you can, but also if you were to, draw a house, you could be, you're getting a much more organic kind of line with a brush if you're going to draw like that. Let's draw something the same way. But, if you're careful, you can get very, very fine lines from it, like that. And let's put a roof on here. And let's say we want that roof to be absolutely dark. This is really great. This really kind of fills in that black very, very quickly. And it's sharp and it's pointy, and you can fill in those areas very, very quickly. And I'm going to show you another pen. This is the other classic brush pen, which is the Pentel Brush Pen. This is very, very different, and it's a very, very fine brush. And you can draw incredibly fine lines with it, and much, much thicker lines as well. So you can see that it is much more of a brush, whereas the Uni Pen is much more technical, I think is probably the word. This pen requires a really loose wrist and to draw from the elbow, because if you draw, you know, with your fingers and your wrist, it goes, you know, it just goes really, your fingers are really tight, then you get a very wobbly line and you're losing control. It needs to be really nice, smooth lines. Whereas with the Uni Pen, you can, you know, draw that much more smaller and detailed kind of thing. I am definitely holding on to this. So here is my little set which I go out sketching with. That is my favourite pen I'm not going to talk about. This is going to go and join me on my on my trips with my Aquash pen. Watercolours, kitchen towel, pens, wax pencil, food pen, and pencil and water brush. That's all you need. So what do I think of these pens? I think they are really, really good pens, but they're actually not for me and my style. I'm a much looser style. I draw much more quickly. I draw at angles and all sorts of things like that. Whereas these are quite hard. The nibs are quite hard, and I feel these are very technical. So I think for doodling, and doing colouring books, technical stuff like that, these are really, really good. And they just feel like they're giving you the right thickness of line. Whereas some other pens don't quite do that, and they're a bit softer and they might splay a bit, that kind of thing. Other pens claim to be waterproof and water resistant and fade proof, and they're not, but these are. I think they're really good pens for technical and more detailed kind of artwork. And if you draw kind of slowly, they're going to be perfect for you. I draw fast and crazy, so they're not quite for me. So there we are. Thank you very much for watching. I will put links for you in the box below, and I will look forward to seeing you next time. In the meantime, keep drawing, practice, and I'll see you next time. You take care now. Bye-bye.